Hi, everybody, and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Mary Razemba, and I am bringing you an episode of Ask Mary. This is where I go into my archives, into my inboxes, and I answer some of the questions that I receive. If you didn't already know, my name is Mary Razemba. I am a coach, a migration coach in particular, and I teach you strategies for safe and legal migration to get you from where you are, somewhere in the third world, to right here and take your place in the first world. If you haven't already done so, I need you to go to my channel and subscribe. That way you get the latest videos and information as they come in, and of course information that is useful when you are trying to migrate. Go ahead and turn on the notification button as well, so you will be notified as soon as I post something new. Today I want to answer one question that I got in my inbox. And it came from somebody who asked, how come that there are so many labor shortages in Europe and the first world? Where does the labor shortage come from? And I found it a very interesting question, but it's a very broad topic. And I thought I would answer this question on video. So I've made a very interesting chart for you so you can follow how we come across these labor shortages. There are 5 things that had to happen for these labor shortages to come into effect, and here is number 1. The first thing that had to happen was in the early 1900s, which was a booming in the production industry. So the industry on its own, they decided to manufacture more, which means they streamlined the production process, and they were able to provide more services and more goods and create more new things quicker and easier. Right? Which means the economies were growing and economy was booming. And then number 2, the Second World War happens, which means everything is stopped. But at the end of the Second World War, the production kind of picks up, and this time, because of all the technology that they had picked up during the war, they were able to speed up production. So things started to happen faster. They were able to produce more goods. Most of the great technological inventions happened also at this time, and they managed to streamline the production and industry services. So there is peace in the first world, in the first world. In the first world, there's peace, there is harmony, there is production, which means the economy is flowing, and that results in step number 3, which is a big baby boom. So there are more jobs, there's more security, and there is a boom in the populations. People are more confident about their security financially and physically, so they start to have more children. There are more children that were born in between 1945 and 1970, and these we refer to the baby booming years in the first world. But what comes with baby boomers is that there is more jobs that need to be created for these people when they get to a certain age. But there's also more production that needs to happen so that they have the same quality of life as their parents who gave birth to them, right? Who were the post-war people, right? So there is a big growth in the industry and in the economies in the first world. This is the reason why most of the time they became the first world, because there was such a big boom in the economic growth of these countries. And if you notice, first world countries are all those countries that had a hand in the Second World War, and that's what sped up their growth. That's why they became first world countries. So this happens, everybody's having babies, everybody's the wealth is flowing, everybody's kind of rich, everybody's secure. And then there is the invention of birth control, which leads me to number 4, the emancipation of women and reduced population, which means the women started to, instead of just staying home and having children to take care of, they decided to pursue also careers. This is something big from about the late 60s to around, it was something, a wave from the late 60s into the 70s, into the 80s. And by the time it was the 80s, women pursuing careers in the first world was a thing. It was kind of expected. So, which means that most people were taking time to study. Most women were taking time to study and build themselves up and get a career and get a job instead of staying home and having kids. But what does this mean in terms of the population? It means that the population growth started to shrink, which means not as many children were born from this period. So the population starts to get smaller after it's seen such a big boom. But one important thing that you need to understand about the first world is the fact that they have a pension system. So, what it means is as long as you work until a certain age, you get to a point where you say, okay, I'm going to stop working, I'm going to retire, and I'm just going to live the rest of my life and enjoy my pension. And most of the time, these pensions are funded by yourself. Some of the money you put aside for yourself while you are working and getting older, but a lot of it is state funds, which means the government gives you money, and where the government gets this money is from taxing the people that are currently working. Okay, so now you see that there is a problem that was kind of on the horizon, because there was this huge population boom in the 60s, in the 50s and 60s, and there were a lot of children who were born. But from about the 80s, less people were being born, which means there were less people to pay these taxes and pensions for people who are getting older. And then comes in the fifth factor, which is pretty much the world has devastated the world, and we are kind of trying to get out of it. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about the COVID-19 pandemic. So what the pandemic has done is it has kind of quickened the pace at which these baby boomers need to leave the work floor. It left a lot of people with disabilities and conditions that make them unable to work in the current or in previous pre-pandemic situations. So, which means the workforce suddenly has shrunk. It's become smaller. And the problem is, it's not small enough to say that we don't have any pensions that we need to pay. But at the same time, because of the fact that life has been good in the first world and people live longer, these pensions need to be paid for longer, but which means they need to have a bigger base of employees and people who they can tax so that they can come up with this money to pay out these pensions. And that's where the labor deficit comes in. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your opportunity. If you're an African, if you're a young African person who is educated, this is where the opportunity lies for you. Why? Because it simply means that they cannot have the labor, they cannot suddenly make the labor to fill these positions and to keep industry going at the level that it had been going for so long. And now they're at a point where they have to import the labor, they have to import people to help them keep industry afloat, but also to take the positions of those people who have been lost, or those workers who have been lost because of the pandemic. So, this is your opportunity if you are a young African person who is skilled, educated. And I say this because it's also a certain type of worker, of immigrant, that the first world is at this moment very much in need of. It's people who are educated, it's people who are in services like STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. It's people who are in healthcare and well-being. It's people who are in maintenance services, building, construction, electronics, air conditioning. It's people in logistics as well, because that's also pretty important. And that's where the labor shortages are. So that's 10 minutes. That's Ask Mary. Thank you so much for joining, and I will see you next time. If you have a question, go ahead and send me a message, send me an inbox, or answer right here in the comments section. Let me know what you think. Let me know if it was clear, as well as subscribing to my channel so that you can get the latest news and notifications when I do post videos. But for now, thank you so much for joining, and let's see you next time.